Be me 31-year-old male, Leo. Work a pretty standard 9 to 5 job in logistics. Pays the bills, leaves me enough time for hobbies. Live in a decent apartment with my wife of 3 years, Layla. We have been together for 7 years total. Our life is, or was, pretty normal. We would cook dinner together, watch movies, argue about stupid stuff like who finished the coffee. The usual couple things. Then about 6 months ago, something shifted. Layla got really into this online community, some kind of fourth wave, hyper-specific feminist group. At first, I did not think much of it. Everyone has their interests. I have my model trains and my obscure history podcasts. She has her online forums, fair enough, but it started to bleed into our real life in weird ways. She would use terms I did not understand, talk about emotional labor when I asked her to pass the salt. She would deconstruct our entire relationship dynamic because I left my socks on the floor. It was exhausting. Every minor issue became a symptom of systemic patriarchal oppression. I tried to be understanding. I really did. I read some of the articles she sent me, tried to engage in the conversations she wanted to have, but it felt like walking through a minefield. Anything I said was wrong. My perspective was inherently biased because I was a male. I was part of the problem. Our arguments became more frequent, more intense. They were not about the coffee anymore. They were about my internalized misogyny and her unpaid domestic servitude. It was like she had been handed a new language and a new lens to view the world through. And that lens painted me as the villain in our story. The easy intimacy we used to have was gone, replaced by a constant state of tension and analysis. I started to feel like a specimen in a jar, being perpetually examined for flaws. I missed my wife. I missed the woman who would laugh at my dumb jokes, not analyze them for microaggressions. I missed the Layla who saw me as Leo, her husband, not just a walking, talking embodiment of the patriarchy, but I loved her, so I kept trying. I suggested counseling. She said therapy was a tool of the patriarchy designed to make women more compliant. I suggested we take a vacation, just the two of us, to reconnect. She said she could not relax in a world where women were still oppressed. Every attempt I made to bridge the gap was met with a new ideological roadblock. I was getting tired, really deeply tired. Then came the bombshell. It was a Tuesday evening. I came home from work, dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, and walked into the living room. Layla was sitting on the couch, laptop open, face illuminated by the screen. I said, "Hey, what do you feel like for dinner?" She did not look up, she just said, "Leo, we need to talk." My stomach immediately clenched. Those are the 5 worst words in the English language. I sat down on the armchair opposite her. "What's up?" She finally closed her laptop and looked at me. Her expression was serious, almost solemn. I have been doing a lot of reading and reflecting about our relationship, about the power dynamics at play. Oh boy, here we go again. And I have come to a decision. I need to recalibrate the emotional and verbal labor in this household. I just stared at her, having no idea what that meant. Okay, and what does that look like? I am instituting a week of silence, she announced, as if she were declaring a national holiday. A week of what? Silence. For the next 7 days, I will not be speaking to you. I will be communicating my essential needs via written notes, but that is it. I am withdrawing my verbal labor to protest the inequitable dynamic of our communication. I honestly thought she was joking. I waited for the punchline, for her to crack a smile. She did not. She was dead serious. A week of silence. Because I left the toilet seat up or something. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, but I pushed it down. Getting angry would just prove her point, whatever that point was. I would be the typical male, reacting with aggression instead of understanding, so I took a deep breath. Layla, this is a little extreme, don't you think? We can just talk about what's bothering you. No, Leo, we cannot. Talking is the problem. Your voice has dominated our shared space for too long. Now it is time for silence to have its turn. She had this rehearsed quality to her speech, like she was reading from a script. It did not sound like her at all. It sounded like the articles she was always reading. "So, you are just not going to talk to me for a week." "That is correct, it starts now," and that was it. She picked up her laptop, opened it, and disappeared back into the glow of the screen. The conversation was over. The silence had begun. I sat there for a long time, the quiet of the apartment pressing in on me. This was my life now, a silent protest in my own home. I did not know whether to laugh or cry, so I just went to the kitchen and made myself a sandwich. What else was I supposed to do? The first day was the weirdest. I woke up and for a second everything felt normal, then I remembered the silence. I went into the kitchen. Layla was already there making coffee. I said good morning out of habit. She just looked at me, her expression a blank wall, and then pointedly turned her back. Right, the rules. I made my own coffee in a deafening silence that was somehow louder than our usual morning chatter. There was a note on the counter. In Layla's neat, precise handwriting it said, "I need you to buy milk on your way home, we are out." I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. This was absurd. I went to work. The noise and bustle of the office was a relief. I could talk to people, joke around, have normal conversations that did not feel like a political statement. I told my coworker, Mark, a little bit about what was going on. I framed it as a joke, a funny little marital spat. "My wife's giving me the silent treatment," I said, trying to laugh it off. He chuckled. "What did you do, man? Forget her birthday?" I wish it were that simple. I did not go into the details about verbal labor and communicative inequity. How could I? It sounded insane. When I got home that evening, the apartment was quiet again. Layla was in the living room reading a book. She did not look up when I came in. I had bought the milk. I put it in the fridge. I felt a petty urge to leave a note back. Mission accomplished. The dairy product has been secured, but I resisted. I was not going to play this game. I made myself dinner, ate it alone at the kitchen table while Layla read in the other room. The silence was a physical presence. It filled the space between us, thick and suffocating. This was not just the absence of noise. It was a statement, a weapon, and I was the target. That night we slept in the same bed, but it felt like we were miles apart. A great, silent chasm had opened up between us. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how we had gotten here. How had our love, once so easy and full of laughter, become this cold, quiet war? The second and third days were more of the same. A routine started to form. Silent mornings, notes for essential communication, quiet evenings spent in separate rooms. I was starting to feel like a ghost in my own home. I found myself talking to myself just to hear a voice. I would narrate my actions under my breath. And now Leo is putting the dishes in the dishwasher. What a thrilling life he leads. It was pathetic, but it was better than the crushing silence. I started spending more time out of the apartment. I went to the gym after work, even though I hate the gym. I went for long walks, listening to podcasts to fill the void. I called my friends more often. One evening, I called my old college buddy, Ethan. We had not talked in a while, life getting in the way as it does. He picked up on the second ring. "Leo, man, what's up? It's been a minute." Hearing his cheerful, normal voice was like a drink of water in a desert. "Hey, Ethan, not much, just wanted to catch up." We talked for over an hour, about work, about sports, about stupid memories from college. It felt so good to just talk, to have a conversation that was not a battlefield. I did not tell him about Layla's silence protest. I was too embarrassed. It felt like a personal failure, something to be hidden away. But talking to him made me realize how isolated I had become, how much I missed the easy camaraderie of friendship. On the fourth day, something happened. I came home from work and Layla was not there. This was unusual. She was usually home before me. There was a note on the table. "I am at a meeting for my women's consciousness-raising group. I will be back late." A consciousness-raising group, of course. I had the apartment to myself. At first, it was a relief. I could turn on the TV, play my music, exist without the oppressive weight of the silence. I made myself a big, messy plate of nachos and sat on the couch, watching a dumb action movie. It was almost like being single again, but as the evening wore on, a different feeling started to creep in: loneliness. I was lonely in my own home, in my own marriage. I found myself wondering what she was doing at her meeting. Were they all sitting in a circle complaining about their husbands? Was she telling them about her week of silence? Were they all nodding in solidarity, congratulating her on her bravery for reclaiming her voice by not using it? The thought made me angry all over again. This was not about us anymore. It was about her and her new friends, her new ideology. I was just a prop in her personal feminist drama. I decided to do something I probably should not have done. Her laptop was on the coffee table. She had left it open. I knew her password. It was the name of our first pet, a grumpy cat named Brutus. I hesitated for a moment. This was a breach of privacy, a line I had never crossed before, but this whole week had been a breach of our marriage vows, of basic human decency. I felt like the rules had already been broken. I typed in the password. The screen lit up, her email was open. I did not have to snoop around. The most recent email chain was right there at the top. The subject line was "Week of Silence Support Thread." My heart started to pound. I clicked on it. It was an email chain with several other women from her group, and Layla, my wife, had been giving them daily updates on her protest. I started to read. My hands were shaking. Day 1, the silence has commenced. The subject, she called me the subject, reacted with predictable male confusion and fragility. He attempted to engage in verbal discourse, which I summarily ignored. It was empowering. Day 2. The subject is visibly agitated by the lack of emotional labor on my part. He has resorted to muttering to himself, a clear sign that the disruption of the established power dynamic is effective. Day 3. A small victory today. I left a note requesting the acquisition of bovine lactation fluid milk, and the subject complied without verbal protest. He is learning the new communication protocols. Bovine lactation fluid. She could not even write milk like a normal human being. I felt sick. This was not a personal protest. This was a performance. A social experiment she was conducting on her own husband, with a live audience cheering her on. I was not her partner, I was her subject. Our home was not a shared space, it was her laboratory. I kept reading, a knot of ice forming in my stomach. The other women's replies were a chorus of fawning praise. "You are so brave, Layla, a true warrior. I am taking notes. My partner's mansplaining is out of control. Stay strong, sister, you are doing vital work." They were treating my pain, my confusion, my loneliness as a joke. A victory for their cause. I was not a person to them. I was a caricature, the clueless, oppressive husband from their feminist textbooks, and Layla was eating it up. She was basking in their validation, their approval. This was not about fixing our marriage. It was about scoring points in her new social circle. I felt a profound sense of betrayal, deeper than any argument we had ever had. This was a calculated, deliberate act of cruelty, disguised as political activism. I closed the laptop, my mind reeling. I did not know what to do. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and leave right then and there. Another part of me wanted to smash the laptop against the wall, but I did neither. I just sat there in the quiet, empty apartment, the words from the emails burning in my brain. The subject, that is all I was to her now. I went into the bedroom and opened my closet. I pulled out an old duffel bag and started to pack. Not a lot, just a few changes of clothes, my toothbrush, my laptop. I did not know where I was going, maybe a hotel. Maybe Ethan's place. I just knew I could not stay here. I could not look at her knowing what I knew, knowing how she saw me. As I was zipping up the bag, I heard the front door open. My heart leaped into my throat. She was home. I froze, standing in the middle of our bedroom with a packed bag in my hand. What was I going to do? Run? Hide? No, I was done being silent. I was done being the subject. I took a deep breath, picked up the bag, and walked out of the bedroom. Layla was in the hallway taking off her coat. She looked up, saw me, and then saw the bag. For the first time all week, an emotion flickered across her face. Surprise. She opened her mouth to speak, then seemed to remember the rules of her own stupid game. She reached into her purse for her notepad and pen. I just shook my head. No, Layla, no more notes. My voice sounded strange in the silent apartment, rusty from disuse. She froze, her hand still in her purse. We are going to talk, I said, my voice gaining strength, and you are going to listen. She looked at me, a flicker of something in her eyes. Fear, anger, I could not tell. She slowly took her hand out of her purse, empty. She was breaking her own rule. The silence was over. I gestured for her to go into the living room. She did, moving like a robot. I followed her in and put my bag down by the door. This was it. The explosion I had been dreading all week. I sat on the armchair. She sat on the couch. The same positions we had been in when this whole nightmare started. I looked at her, my wife of 3 years, the woman I had promised to love and cherish, and I felt a vast, empty distance between us. I read your emails, Layla. The color drained from her face. She looked like I had slapped her. My emails. Yes, the week of silence support thread, very enlightening reading. She just stared at me, speechless. The master of verbal protest, finally at a loss for words. The subject, I said, the words tasting like poison in my mouth. Is that what I am to you now, a subject in your little experiment? She flinched. Leo, you do not understand. Oh, I think I understand perfectly, I interrupted, my voice rising. I understand that this whole week, this whole silent treatment charade, it was not about us. It was about you and your new friends. It was a performance to get their approval. Tears started to well up in her eyes. That is not true, is it not? The subject reacted with predictable male fragility. The disruption of the established power dynamic is effective. Bovine lactation fluid. You were not trying to fix our marriage, Layla. You were writing a damn thesis on it with me as your lab rat. I was shouting now, the anger and hurt of the past week, the past months pouring out of me. I have been so lonely, Layla. I have been living in my own home like a ghost, talking to myself just to feel sane. And you were online, laughing about it with your sisters, documenting my pain for their entertainment. A tear rolled down her cheek. I did not. I did not think of it like that. How else were you thinking of it? Did you really think this was going to help us? This cruelty, this game? Did you think humiliating me was going to make our marriage better? She shook her head, sobbing now. I just wanted you to listen. I felt like you never listened to me. I was always listening, Layla. I was trying so hard to listen. I read your articles. I tried to have your conversations. But it was never enough. Nothing I ever did was right. I was always the enemy, the oppressor. I stood up, pacing the room. You did not want a partner, you wanted a convert, and when I would not convert, you decided to punish me. To make me into the villain you needed me to be for your new story. I stopped in front of her. She was looking down at her hands, her shoulders shaking. I miss my wife, Layla, I said, my voice breaking. I miss the woman who loved me, not the patriarchy she thought I represented. I miss the woman who saw me as a person, not a political statement. I looked at her for a long moment, this stranger sitting on my couch. I cannot do this anymore, I said, my voice quiet now. I cannot live in this house with this constant judgment, this constant war. I walked over to the door and picked up my bag, her head snapped up. Leo, wait. Where are you going? I do not know, I said honestly, but I cannot stay here. Please, she whispered, her voice choked with tears. Please do not go. I looked at her, at the mess our life had become. And for the first time, I did not feel anger. I just felt a deep, profound sadness and a small, quiet sense of release. Goodbye, Layla, and I walked out the door. I did not know where I was going, so I just started driving. I ended up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. I checked in, went up to my room, and just sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. The silence in the room was different from the silence at home. It was not heavy or oppressive, it was just empty, and in that emptiness there was a strange kind of peace. I had done the right thing. I did not know what the future held, but I knew I could not go back to what my life had become. The next day, I called Ethan. I told him everything, the whole crazy story. He listened patiently without interrupting. When I was done, he just said, "Man, I am so sorry, that is insane." "Yeah," I said, a humorless laugh escaping me. "It is. What are you going to do now?" "I have no idea." "Well, you are not staying in that motel," he said firmly. "I have a spare room. It is yours for as long as you need it." I felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost knocked me over. "Ethan, I cannot ask you to do that. You are not asking, I am offering, that is what friends are for, man." And so I moved in with Ethan. It was strange at first, living in someone else's space, but it was also nice. We would cook dinner, watch sports, play video games. It was simple, easy, normal. There was no tension, no ideological warfare, just friendship. A few days after I left, Layla started calling and texting and emailing. A flood of communication from the woman who had demanded silence. I did not answer. I was not ready to talk to her. I did not know if I ever would be. I read some of her messages. They were a mix of apologies, recriminations, and pleas for me to come home. She said she had made a terrible mistake, that she had gotten lost in the ideology and forgotten about the person, that she loved me. I did not know what to believe. Was this the real Layla, or was this just another performance designed to get the reaction she wanted? I did not have the energy to find out. I started going to therapy, a real therapist this time. A nice woman named Dr. Anya. I told her everything. She listened without judgment. She helped me unpack the anger, the hurt, the confusion. She helped me see that Layla's behavior was not my fault. That I had not been a bad husband. That I had just been a person trying to love someone who had forgotten how to love me back. It was a slow process. There were good days and bad days. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward. I started rediscovering myself. The person I was before my marriage became a political science lecture. I started working on my model trains again. I went hiking with Ethan on the weekends. I started to laugh again. A real, genuine laugh. About 2 months after I left, I filed for divorce. Layla did not contest it. We met once with our lawyers to sign the papers. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired. She tried to talk to me, to apologize again in person. I just shook my head. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Layla," I said, and I meant it. I was not angry anymore. I was just done. I walked out of that lawyer's office and felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I did not even realize I had been carrying. I was free. It has been a year now. I have my own apartment. It is smaller than the one I shared with Layla, but it is mine. I have filled it with my things. My books, my trains, my life. I am still friends with Ethan. He is my best friend. I am dating again. A nice woman named Emily. She is a veterinarian. She is kind and funny, and she laughs at my dumb jokes. We talk about everything and nothing. Our conversations are not minefields. They are just conversations. Sometimes I think about Layla. I wonder if she is happy. I wonder if she ever found a way out of the ideological maze she had built around herself. I do not know, and I have realized that it is not my job to know. My life is my own now. And it is a good life. It is a quiet life, but not the bad kind of quiet. It is a peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet that lets you hear yourself think, and I like what I hear. I like the person I am becoming. I lost my wife, my home, my life as I knew it. Everything exploded. But in the wreckage, I found myself. And that is a victory worth more than any argument I could have ever won. I am finally, truly at peace.